forward to a very hot topic, and we've already spoken a lot about it during previous talks. And we are going to talk about the European approach to AI regulation, European Artificial Intelligence Act. And here on the stage, we will have Paulius Astromskis, managing partner at Excel Legal and Localizer. AI regulation is one of the most difficult issues of the field in the past decade. And most probably this is why we are having so many discussions about it right now. Where are we moving and what should be done? Paulius, he will share his insights and his approach and his takeaways on the newest EU Intelligence Act. Paulius is a technology law expert working with tech companies and startups since 2008. And he has deep business and legal knowledge in corporate compliance and product structure issues. He is deeply passionate and is actively researching various interdisciplinary issues of law, economics, and ethics of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. Besides legal practice, Paulius is also deeply involved in legal tech industry, is one of Legal Hackers Vilnius chapter founders and ambassador of the European Legal Tech Association. So welcome, Paulius.
Thank you.
Welcome. Unfortunately, we do not have you live here on the stage right next to me, but I'm sure we will have a lot of questions for you at the end. So if you've been with the conference, you might have heard that you are going to speak on one of the hottest topics today. Don't you feel any pressure?
Well, yeah, that was very surprising how much of good ideas and good insights has been shared throughout these days. And I'm really delighted to be here and contribute to that discussion on responsible AI policy regulation. And yes, the pressure is high. But well, I will do the best.
So let's put the pressure aside. Everyone's here, excited to hear your presentation, so go ahead.
Thank you. So my purpose is more to overview what's currently on hand in European Commission. Most of you already read of throughout these 2 days, listened for many various aspects and referrals to this new EU Artificial Intelligence Act. So hopefully my overview will put everything in a broad context, so to speak, and we will be able to go into details at the Q&A session. So first of all, AI as a concept is not new. However, with exponential growth of computing power and infrastructure and technologies, the adaptability became massive, and therefore it attracted many huge business and capital investments, and of course attention of mass public, so to speak. And therefore currently we can, at least I can say that technologies became addictive, and AI-driven technologies are pushing this addiction to completely new levels. So the question with the growth of this addiction, as I call, deserves the same question as any type of addiction deserves. And the best of it can be put in the quote of Charlie Brooker, the creator of Black Mirror series, asking, well, if technology sees a drug and it does feel like a drug, well, what precisely are the side effects? So of course, these developments in technologies, in AI, possess many threats. There are a lot of side effects, and being lawyer and myself, and also seeing and speaking and reading other lawyers and legislators, this question of side effects is moved further, asking, okay, what side effects are, let's say, minimum or acceptable in terms of the value given and in terms of the positive things, which of the costs we can accept, and which of these side effects and which of these issues and threats and risks are actually unacceptable. And if it is unacceptable, well, how can we regulate it? I mean, the only gatekeepers here, of course, the technology developers, engineers are at the front lines, but the gatekeepers are actually lawyers and legislators who are thinking of the tools, of the tools and requirements to mitigate the harmful effects which are or can be caused by technological addiction. So with this exponential growth and growing amount of discussions on various risk factors, the idea and the debate has been caught by scholars first. And we can see from 2006, 2007, the attention of high-level scholars on issues of artificial intelligence and regulation or law in a keywords. I did a search only by keywords, so we can see a massive growth of scholarship attention, asking questions, putting the debate outside. And also suggesting or critiquing various approaches. That was led by basically massive scale of various AI policies and strategies all across the globe. Many governments taking up on this debate of how to regulate new technologies and how to regulate AI. And seeing the business side of it, started looking at this industry and this sector, this concept from a strategic and policy view. So many strategies has been popping out here and there, basically in this, let's say, decade or so. After the policies and strategies, of course, the governmental money came and policy agenda came, and of course that naturally has led to the official, or let's say already legislative inquiries. Okay, so what should we do with AI? And turning now to Europe. At least in my point of view, the beginning of regulation debate came from the RoboLaw initiative, started in 2012 and finished in 2014. Very well known research done by the best scholars of the top tier of scholarship in Europe. It's putting these guidelines on regulating robotics, which afterwards has been caught by European Parliament and used it as a recommendations in 2017 for civil law rules on robotics. So that, well, at least in my practice, I've never seen a legal act or at least legal recommendation from such a high sourced legislative body where many referrals has been made to let's say science fiction. There's also Asimov's 3 rules of robotics are in these recommendations. We can see the Frankenstein or Carl Čapek, Golem, and all of those referrals kind of putting an insight and putting the idea that, look, one day we might see AI acting as humans, or at least sufficiently mimic it at a very high and humanistic level. So the futuristic line of developments, of possibilities, has been transferred through comparison with basically science fiction figures. But of course, some of these ideas and science fiction has been left to debates and other scholarship inquiries. But these recommendations have served as a starting point for European Commission to act. And the very first and probably most influential guidelines has been started, developed and came into the being more or less 2 years ago. I'm referring to the ethics guidelines for Trustworthy AI, where the high-level expert group said, okay, these are the ethical principles which we think should be implemented or should be adhered in European Union. We see artificial intelligence as trustworthy. This is the main principle of development, and these are the rules and these are the policies. So this declaration, of course, has been some of them accepted very on a high note and very applauding. Another group has been critiquing it, but after this one, European Commission continued their work, and they have published many new guidelines, many reports, many studies on some different aspects of AI and its implementations. In total, more than 1,200 institutions or individuals, high-level experts, has contributed to this process, and I would say overall agreement for need of action is here. So within this roadmap, I have marked few of these follow-up studies after the guidelines, which were the AI self-assessment tool, the criteria and the specific questions. I mean, the methodological guidelines, so to speak, on the self-assessment of AI, which is under development in one or other organization. And another one is on liability for the actions, if I can refer to that as an actions, for liability of those actions. So basically, within this roadmap, European Commission said, look, these are the principles. This is the tools for you to check if your developments are in line with those principles. And this is how we see the liability for non-compliance. So during these 2 years and many studies, which actually kind of shows and exposes that the current let's say pre-final proposal for regulation of AI has not been drawn in some Brussels cabinet. It was a massive operation, resulted in a massive amount of beautifully written studies. So the current proposal is, I would say, well thought, and kind of implements all of these debates and all of these studies in one document, which is Artificial Intelligence Act. So this going into more specifics, This act considers not only machine learning, but also expert systems, statistical models, the definition given for AI, which is the definition list, is also one of the great things which this act does, just leveling the field of defining one or another concept in the AI field. So definition of AI also includes machine learning, either supervised and supervised, reinforcement learning, various methods of deep learning, logic and knowledge-based approaches, statistical approaches, search optimization methods. I mean, the definition of AI as such is rather wide, and therefore application of this law will also be, I'm guessing, of course, but after its adoption, I think the aim is very high and very wide. So what's in general, what is this act about? So the subject matter of Artificial Intelligence Act is basically to harmonize rules across the European Union. We have seen the same harmonization project with GDPR and many others. So basically, the European Union is saying that, look, we need a common policy, we need a common rules, and we have to level the national playing fields across the union. This act prohibits or puts specific requirements for certain high risk or certain AI practices. This act pushes the harmonized transparency rules for certain systems who are intended to interact with people or emotional recognitions and etc. And of course, naturally, this legal act puts down the rules on market monitoring, surveillance, and of course, the overall governance of the AI industry. So basically, this act emphasizes ethical implications of AI, I could say. It enforces the quality of AI and leveling the playing field. And this is done with various conformity declarations, registrations, and etc. Legal certainty, which comes with the harmonized rules, and of course the common board of market governance. With scope of application, this act is applied. In comparing, I could say that it applies not only to AI systems built in the union, but also for AI systems which are built outside EU, but the users are targeted in the union, or the output produced by the system is based in union. So I could say, knowing that the limitless cyberspace, basically this act aims at regulating, putting the regulation globally if it affects in one way or another the interest of the European Union. It does not apply to military or public authorities in third countries or international organizations using these systems for law enforcement or judicial cooperation. So basically, courts, law enforcement, and military is excluded from AI. The question is, of course, how are they governed? But anyway, this is the scope which we have currently on hand. This act categorizes and pushes the risk-based approach, which is seen in GDPR, which is seen in EML regulations, and all across the other important fields. And with a risk-based approach, Europe is dividing AI systems in an unacceptable risk, into high risk, limited, or minimal risk AI systems, which I will show and explain in few next slides. So having this distribution prohibited are all the applications where AI poses an unacceptable risk. And these are the subliminal manipulation, which may result in physical or physiological harm, various nudging techniques, or for example, the truck drivers or some other professions where AI is used to kind of foster the productivity or some other context. Then exploitation of children, mentally disabled or vulnerable persons, meaning all the assisting tools, assisting techniques, the toys for kids, and all of these industries. Social scoring is prohibited, and biometric identification in public spaces, and of course, with certain exceptions. So any application of AI or this type of applications are and or will be prohibited as a whole. Now, the high-risk artificial intelligence systems are described through the general characteristics or targeted applications. In general characteristics, all the products which are covered by the list of harmonization legislation or products which requires the conformity assessments are under the high-risk tag, and some specific fields which includes biometrics, critical infrastructure, education, employment, private enjoyment of essential private services and public services, law enforcement, immigration, and administration of justice as a field. So, of course, not every AI system in these fields are high risk. This is a subject matter of already risk evaluation. But if upon the risk assessment, the AI will be tagged as a high risk, that already will involve certain, I would say, harsh and strict requirements on not only for releasing it for the public, but also for managing these systems. So the companies who are putting in market the high-risk AI systems will have to have the continuous risk management process, suitable testing, estimating, evaluating foreseeable risk systems, very detailed record keeping, automatic record keeping of all events, all logs, all uses or natural or persons who are involved or interact with the systems, cybersecurity, including once again the risk-based approach on cybersecurity is also here. The data and data governance techniques, also risk management, high quality, unbiased data sets, data governance, the training methodology clearly described and documented. And of course, technical documentation should be not only one-time shot, but the requirement is for continuous updating and having it in as much detail as possible to before placement of market, transparency, and of course human oversight. So as you can see, the requirements, which one of the speakers correctly said, okay, the requirements are here, what's the methodology and what are the tools for that? So requirements are here, the guidelines and the details, I think, will follow through the AI Board of Europe. But the oversight and the aim to oversight is also, I would say, of impressive scope. The question is, how it will play out in the real world. Now, for the limited or low-risk systems, there are certain transparency obligations which requires to inform general public or people, that they interact with the AI systems. There are some requirements of codes of conduct, but for limited or low-risk AI systems, these requirements are far less harsh than it is for high level. Of course, the risk evaluation and the risk assessment is one of the leading parts here. So, in order to govern all of these, the special EU the Artificial Intelligence Board is created, including various representatives of national competent authorities, the European Data Protection Supervisor, and of course it will be chaired by the Commission. So it's the aim task, of course, as we can guess intuitively, is to provide those guidelines, provide methodologies to assess, to govern, and to manage AI systems, be it low risk or high risk, etc. So although the initial job is done, but of course it's not finished yet. But the core and the main work of European Commission in setting out the details, operational details of this legislation is yet to come. The good thing is that regulation sets down the regulatory sandboxes context. The idea, and I guess these sandboxes will be a good place and good tool to test your AI systems before releasing, and to ensuring the compliance with rather harsh law. Penalties are impressive. It's basically in line with penalties introduced by GDPR. The question is, of course, is that enough? Is that not enough? Or how many of those AI system developers will be moving out of EU in the same way as did some of the companies due to GDPR? But of course, somebody will be scared and simply will not put the products for European customers. But on the other hand, the question is, okay, is 30 million big or not big money for 4 or 6%? Is that big money or not big money for, let's say, Google or Facebook? So this is yet another question to discuss. So overall, nothing deep. Just I have covered the outer space of what's on the hand currently, and I'm waiting for questions.
Thank you very much, Paulius. And you wrapped up with some penalties on your last slide. So I would like to ask a question. What do you think about sanctions in high-risk fields? Would startups create and develop if some functionality overlaps with their solution, and that might be assumed as something to be sanctioned? Aren't we stopping the progress and experimentation in the field?
Well, that's the thing with any type of regulation is, it's in constant clash with, freedom and control. The more control you have, the less freedom you are giving out. So of course, some of the ideas and developments which are currently in laboratories or in the heads of innovators will be stopped, and some of the innovations will be slowed down simply because of the high attention of supervisory boards. But this is the price to pay for quality, and this is a price to pay for safety of the tools and technologies which we are using, sometimes intuitively or even not even knowing that some AI system is scanning every your step. So this is, I think the regulation is very on time, and even if it will stop some innovations, this is a price I'm agreeing to pay. With regard to penalties, if comparing, comparing that to GDPR penalties, we are seeing, constant growing and of course lesser amounts. And the beginning of GDPR was rather slow with low amounts, but currently the fines are growing bigger, and especially for those companies and which has a massive distribution, massive usage. So basically, the fining process will be in the hands of the courts, who will wait in the courts or the supervisory bodies who will weigh the dangers, the risks, the impacts of certain usages, or let's say negligence on the part of its engineers. So if engineers will, let's say, knowingly put some system which will be overlapped, and this intentional fault will be proved. So this is, of course, deserves the highest penalties. But if that's a black box problem or some honest human mistakes, so I believe the penalties will be simply sometimes even the slap on the hand might be enough to make everything straight again. So, but it's difficult to guess. The contexts are a bit different between GDPR and this, but I think we will see it very quickly after its release.
And I believe there is one thing that we learned in school. If there is a rule, there is always a workaround, how to make it work. And with the UK being one of the leading in AI industry in Europe, now not part of the EU family, could it be an escape for European companies, like an easy way around to avoid these regulations, or at least easing them a little bit?
Well, if the proposed scope of regulation will be adopted as such, so the only way to avoid European Union regulation is basically not being based in EU. So UK works for that. You cannot target any EU customers. So this is the question, of course, if moving out of EU and kind of waiving your potential in hundreds of millions of users in EU, is that a good business decision or not? And of course, all products which have the part of AI system is also cannot be based in EU. So moving out of European Union simply to avoid the regulation, it means that you are kind of canceling all the market, and you're putting a hard business ban of not going into the market at all. Of course, Europe is only one of the markets. We have United States, we have all the Asian part. So maybe that will be enough. But for developers who are working on the European market and having here a customer base already, or maybe investments, moving to UK, if you want to leave the same market in your hands, will not be a solution at all. Yeah.
So thank you for your insights.